the presentation?
Yeah, here we go.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'm going to go through a few slides, and I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Mail. Your Worship, I would encourage Council to, as you had said, ask questions about mostly this information and what you heard yesterday. There's going to be more opportunities to ask questions as we go through the week here and we do our departmental presentations. So can I start with the next slide, please? So this slide is just an overview of the city's wage trends for our unions, for city council, and for our exempt employees. And part of what I heard yesterday is, we have not been doing a good job managing wages. I know I heard at least one speaker say that there's been no wage reductions. While there's been no wage reductions, you can see the two flat lines being your municipal exempt and council have had municipal exempt. Next year will be our 5th year of no increases across the board. And you can see those lines are dipping down below the compounded inflation and the Alberta weekly wage earnings line. The other thing to point out here is when you see in 2014 and 15 and you see our union wages going up quite a bit, it's important to point out that there's a lag, right, between the time when times are good and you're negotiating contracts. Usually wage increases are higher. When times are bad, like they are right now, and we're just about to start negotiations with our unions, there's no question there's either very small or no or negative wage increases. And so that's why those lags are there. But you can see by and large, especially your municipal exempt staff, we're now falling below inflation. I know of no other local government in Canada that has done what we've done over the last 5 years, and I get it. We're different than everyone else. We're else right now, particularly with the crash in oil prices in 2015. But the point here is we understand the issues in not just in Alberta, but in Calgary, and we are responding, and we're managing those wages and salaries to the best of our ability, and we still plan to do that over the next number of years until the economy recovers. Next slide, please. So this is a bit of a messy slide, so don't read anything here yet, and I'll take you through this. I just want to say a few things. I prefer that you actually listen to me first, because this is pretty important. So we heard, I've been hearing in the media, and we heard yesterday, we've got 3 pensions. We should eliminate the 2nd and 3rd pension plans, and I just want to tell you a little bit about that, because honestly, it's a red herring. It's not quite true, the words that are being said, and it's being misrepresented. And I'll explain that here in a moment. I'll go through the slide again. Don't look at this yet. Listen to me. So it's important to know that in Canada, more than 85% of public sector employees have pension plans. Most of these pension plans, as you know, are defined benefit public pension plans. And they pretty much all provide roughly the same thing, including our pension. And that's about 2% of an employee's annual salary multiplied by the years of pensionable service. And it's like that in Vancouver, it's like that in Toronto, and it's like that here in Calgary. So in all of these municipalities, including those 2 that I just mentioned, Vancouver and Toronto, including Calgary, every dollar of annual income that is earned is pensioned one time. And I want to say that again. Every dollar of annual income that is earned is pensioned only once. So in other words, City of Calgary employees do not, I repeat, they do not receive duplicate or triplicate pensions, as is often portrayed. Rather, the City of Calgary, as shown now on this slide, has 3 plans that, when combined, provide one comprehensive pension, which by and large is equivalent to of the other municipalities like Vancouver. So looking at this slide, the gray is Calgary, the blue is all municipalities in BC like Vancouver, and the green are Ontario municipalities. So you can see this is for a fictitious employee that earns $200,000 a year. We've got up to about $68,000. I can't remember what the number is, but there's one plan, that light gray plan, kind of fills in the gap to make sure that the salary from $0 to $68,000 is 2%. The LAAPP is the dark gray, which is again 2% of annual earnings. And then there's an income tax threshold. I think the number is around $158,000, something like that. Over and above that, what we call here our overcap pension plan, that again provides 2% of earnings times a year's of pensionable service. So that when you add those all together, it's roughly the pension is worth 2% of your annual earnings times a year's of pensionable service. In BC, I was so glad that one speaker mentioned Vancouver yesterday, because I worked for the city of Vancouver for a decade. I belong to the BC Municipal Pension Plan, where there was simply just one plan. But that one plan, even though there's those income tax limits within their pension plan, for whatever reason, it's different in BC and Ontario. And their one plan provides 2% of your annual earnings times the years of pensionable service. The same as in the city of Calgary. And you look at Toronto, it's the same in Toronto. Okay? So when you hear we have 2 and 3 pension plans, it's only topping up to make sure that overall we're receiving a 2% benefit like other municipalities across Canada. So again, the bottom line, while there's differences between the municipal pension plans, the plan benefits are very, very similar. 2% of annual earnings times years of pensionable service. So one of the questions was, if you eliminate, for example, I think it was the supplemental pension plan and the overcap pension plan here in Calgary, there you can save $15 million. If that was done, our pension plan benefits would be far inferior to other municipalities, which would be a major issue attracting and retaining talent. I can tell you that for sure. And at the end of the day, I think the number was $14 or $15 million what the city contributes to those 2 plans on an annual basis. When you look at the differences of these plans, maybe one's slightly better than the other, and I have no doubt there's some differences, but we're probably talking maybe $1 million, maybe a couple $1 million difference each year. At the end of the day, it's really, really small. Again, as I said at the beginning, I believe this story is a bit of a red herring. If you actually did some research, and if you looked online, we've actually got a ton of information about our pensions on the City of Calgary's website. You will see that what we provide here is very similar, not exactly the same, but very similar to the pension plans in Vancouver and the pension plan in Toronto. And again, our SAVE program, what we're going to be talking about here later, if there was massive money to save here, it would have been part of the SAVE program. David? So the SAVE program is what, yes.
Oh, I was just, sorry, please just finish this. I just wanted to jump in before you went off this slide, that's all. Go ahead.
No, I'm not going to go off this slide for another minute. I'm just saying, we're looking for real savings. That'll be savings every single year to make us a more effective and efficient local government and really drive down the cost of the services we provide. Again, this one here is a red herring in my opinion. That's what I was going to say about this slide, Your Worship.
Thanks. I just want to add one thing, which is I've recently joined the Pension Governance Committee, and I received a beautiful orientation on that. And the one thing that a lot of people don't know, you'll notice your headline says other than firefighters. The one thing that many people don't know is the vast majority of people who get that quote unquote second pension are in fact firefighters. And the reason for that is because firefighters, given the nature of their work, tend to retire at an earlier age than others. And there is a pension within the firefighters group that allows them to bridge the time between when they're eligible for their regular pension and perhaps if they retire a few years earlier. And I think most people don't know that. I didn't know that. But the vast majority, no, I shouldn't say the vast majority, but the majority of people who have that quote unquote second pension are in that group. I just thought that was an interesting thing to add to the discussion.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Your Worship. So on pensions, you're going to have much more discussion as a council here in December when our total compensation review consultant will be presenting the findings of their report. And again, the total compensation review is looking at not just wages and salaries, but it combines pension, any other perquisites that city staff get into a combined package and then compares that to municipalities across Canada as well as large private sector employers here in Calgary and Alberta. So that information, more of that information is coming, and you'll have much more opportunity to talk about this. It's just I thought I would at least share this because it was raised yesterday a couple times. Again, I think the story is not 100% accurate, and I just thought I would try and spend a few minutes with you today just to kind of correct some of what people are actually hearing. Next slide, please. This is a really important one. So yesterday we heard, even at times I hear staffing at the city is out of control. We're not like the private sector. We haven't really buckled down and managed our staffing resources here at the city. And this is quite a compelling slide. So since 2010, the city of Calgary has grown by the size of Red Deer and Lethbridge combined. That is massive. And I think between those two municipalities alone, you're probably looking at 3,500 to 4,000 employees just between those two municipalities. If you look, so our population has grown more than 20%. And you can see the headcount growth, that it kind of mirrored up to 2015, 2016 population growth. The simple fact is, when a municipality grows, you need more firefighters, you need more police officers, you need more street sweepers, you need more waste collectors, you need more staff to provide the service because your demand has gone up. However, after 2016, we have really aggressively managed our headcount, including during the pandemic of this year, and we are doing everything we can to minimize our workforce. And so this slide, in my opinion, is pretty telling. We've done a pretty incredible job, and I can tell you, I'm on the phone every single week with city managers across the country. No one is doing what we're doing. When it comes to the SAVE program or managing our headcount or keeping our wages as low as possible, particularly in management exempt sites, having no increases for 5 years, no municipality is doing what we're doing. Others are trying right now, particularly during COVID, but they're catching up. We've been doing this for 5 years simply because we needed to pivot. When oil prices crashed, we needed to do our part. The message we heard yesterday was the city needs to be part of the solution. Some of these slides are showing you we completely agree, and we need to do our part, and we feel we're doing a pretty good job. Next slide, please. I think I'm done here. So actually, go back to the other slide. Please go back to the previous slide. Stay here for a second. So we were unable to add another slide here, Your Worship. There were some comments about our fire department yesterday and how the fire department's getting smaller. There's been staff reductions, and I just want Ms. Black to come on now. We don't have a chart or a graphic for you, but I want her just to maybe correct some of that information that was given yesterday. Ms. Black, are you online?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the opportunity to comment, because I don't think I was the only one who was taken aback by the assertion that we heard yesterday about significant cuts to the fire department, especially because I know that there are more firefighters now than there were when Action Plan began in 2014. So we dug into it, and it's a somewhat complicated story, which is how it is that we don't have a slide yet. So what I want to say is there have indeed been some cuts. There have also been transfers of work to other parts of the organization, like SEMA. There have been deferrals of work. There has been growth. And to the fire department's significant credit, there have been efficiencies found, which is consistent with what we see on the slide that is still in front of us. So as I said, the bottom line is that we have more firefighters now than we did at the beginning of 2014, and we're continuing to manage accordingly.
Thanks, Ms. Black.
Thanks.
And so, Your Worship, I'm going to turn this.
Before you turn it over, Mr. Duckworth, I've got a couple of folks with questions for you. May as well do those before we go to Ms. Mail. So we'll go to Councillor Collier-Cart first.
Thank you very much. Always important to clarify and to put the facts out there. So I really appreciate this. My question was on the head count, and I wish there was a different word for that. I've been trying to think of one, David. But you also provided another slide to us that had more detail on employees. And it was a one-pager. It had core, temporary, seasonal, total. And you may not have access to that right now, but I think it's important for citizens to see that as well.
Thanks for that, Councillor Collier-Urquhart. So there's two terms and numbers that we use for employees. One is what's known as FTE, or full-time equivalent, and those are budgeted positions. Another one is headcount. So how many people do we actually have working at the city at any one time? And so this chart that you see in front of you tries to use headcount from 2010, so it's consistent across the board. We could show another chart that shows FTEs and where there's been reductions in actually budgeted positions, and it would show a similar story. But I thought it was important to show headcount. So yes, we have more information that actually shows the headcount data and the full-time equivalent data. And I believe, Councillor Collier-Urquhart, we're working on, and you're going to see actually later in the slide deck, we actually have a section on our website where we try to bust some of the myths that are out there and the inaccurate stories that are out there. And I believe that information is going to be on that Mythbuster section. I need to determine that 100% for sure, but I'm pretty sure that data is going to be on there. So leave that with me, and I'll confirm that.
I appreciate that, because it also included temporary, seasonal. And, you know, with the war on the truth these days, it's important for us to continue to demonstrate this. The other thing I noticed over the last few months as well, Your Worship, and to Mr. Duckworth, is just this demonization of unions in the public service. And so this clarity that you're bringing today, to really stand up in many ways for the public service and those that serve our citizens is really important. So thank you for this.
Thank you, Councillor Collier-Urquhart. And just to add to that, you know, our public unions that work for the City of Calgary, I mean, they are our partners. They're part of the solution, and they know that. And I have incredible, great discussions with them all the time. Of course, they look after their members, but they know they're part of the bigger piece for the common good for the average Calgarian. And what you see before you here, they're part of the solution. They're here working with us to make sure that we are managing headcounts as effectively as we possibly can, and we're doing the right thing. At the end of the day, what's super important to our unions is that the quality of the services that we provide Calgarians is top-notch. It's really, really good. And I have to tell you, I've worked in 4 other municipalities. The services that we provide Calgarians is incredibly good. At the same time, the cost of those services are incredibly good. And we're going to show you some of that information here in a few slides.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Keating?
Thank you, Your Worship. And thank you, Mr. Duckworth, as well, for bringing this forward. I would have a simple request that I think we're aware of the myth-busting section of our website, but I think we also have to promote it much more. And so every time there's a new entry, or even past ones that are well worth going forward, it would be nice if notice was sent out to all councillors, and that we could put out on our social media and stuff like that, saying, hey, here's a new addition to the Mythbusters section of our website, and hopefully the truth will get out. And you know, I think the second and third pensions, everyone who really understood the pensions knew the truth. They were just choosing not to use it. But I think when we look at savings and a number of different aspects like that, and if your slide showed the Calgary, BC, and Ontario and the different pensions, and the fact is there's only one pension, but there's just 3 different components because of the restrictions of salaries and the federal government and things. But it would be great if we could understand the contribution rates, that comparison between the 3 as well. We all know that everyone up to that 160,000 contributes, some from their own paycheck, individuals contribute, and the municipality contributes, but we don't know past that. And those are things that we may have to be looking at in the future to make sure that we are using the SAVE program as well as we should be, whether or not it's fully contributed by the municipality, or is there a possibility for some to be contributed by the the staff member as well, and whether or not we can go forward down those. So that's what I would be asking for in the future is some more information along that line, so we can really do a deep dive and a solid comparison.
Thank you for that, Councillor Keating. Just to respond to both those issues, so with respect to providing councillors with more information, we were actually just working on that right now, and we will make sure, I think some information was sent to you last week, but we will make sure that we send this information to you so that you can share it with your constituents. I can tell you I've worked with our comms folks here, and I've told them I find there would be incredible value to actually use our community associations and particularly their newsletters, and I would be happy to write articles and put information in those newsletters because I know citizens actually read those. And we need to, and I think we heard from one of our union reps yesterday say that part of the problem is the city doesn't do as good enough job communicating. And you know what, we need to communicate this stuff. Part of the problem is we don't really like to pat ourselves on the back too much. We don't want to look like we're being defensive, but I'm a firm believer that facts are friendly. We need to get as much information in the facts out so Calgarians can, hopefully make up their own mind based on the facts. So I just wanted you to know that more information should be coming to each of the council members here soon. With respect to contribution rates for pensions, a lot of people don't actually understand that most of these pensions, employees fund almost 50%. So almost 50% of the contributions comes from the employee and 50% comes from the employer, roughly. I know here in Calgary, for example, it's roughly 47% from the employee and 53% overall the pension different plans that we have. I know in Vancouver it was either 51 to 52% funded by the employer, with roughly 48 to 49% funded by the employee. Those are the things that we can dive into deeper after the total compensation review in December. We can get the additional direction from council, and I have no doubt we can do a deeper dive to look if there are actual issues that need to be addressed. That's the time to do it. So thank you for those comments, Councillor Keating.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you. And well, I've been one who have said we have to start saying the good things we do more and more and more often, and I think that starts the aspect of the information, not just a memo sent to councillors, but I think we need a bit of a links embedded, sort of a description of what's there, a number of these sorts of things that work well. So that we can just take it and put it out on our social media as well, which was, kind of a comms piece per se, and then we can go forward from there. And I do know that many people who are concerned about the truth, council members or certain organizations or the general public, they understand many of this stuff. They just choose to ignore it, and I think that's where we have to continue to make sure that we're putting out the absolute truth across the board. And then we can, this video here is fantastic because we can snap this on our own social media as council members, and we put out, here's the truth about pensions. You decide whether you want to believe or not. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Keating. We'll go to Councillor Davison, please. And I'm just going to step away from the desk for a moment. So Councillor Demong, after Councillor Davison, I think Ms. Mayo will just continue the presentation, but I'll give you the chair for just a second. Go ahead, Councillor Davison.
Sure, thanks, Your Worship. David, I think this is great information. I mean, I think, just to ladder on to what Councillor Keating said, I mean, could you bring us back a plan to get this out? I mean, I think, we often don't want to pat ourselves on the back, but let's face it, since 2016, we have been fighting against a lot of misinformation, and I don't think it's patting on the back to put out accurate information at all. I think council members and working with our community associations are one channel, but I'd actually like to see a plan, to push this into the homes of everyone. I mean, we have got to get this out to the masses. We've got to start fighting the narrative on this. And so, how can we look at repeating this type of information often and loudly every time, someone comes out against this stuff? How do we make this the the top information on our city website? How do we get this into the front page of the Calgary Herald? Like, I want to plan in terms of how do we combat misinformation, because I think we've played this game for certainly the 3 years I've been here. I think we're done playing around. It's time to get this into the hands of people. And so what does that look like?
So thanks for that, Councillor Davison. I often like to stand on the shoulders of those that came before me, and to quote the previous city manager, Jeff Fielding, leave it with me. We'll work on a plan and we'll get it to you.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you. Over to you, Councillor Dumont.
Thank you. And Councillor Chahal, you're next.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor Demong. And Mr. Duckworth, just one question. I did some previous work on pensions and looking at this through a notice motion, and I guess I think that clarification was well needed and required. My question is for you when it comes to pensions. When we look at recently the trading losses at the provincial government, I think of over $1 billion, and the volatile financial markets we've seen this year, which may end up in losses. And do we have, I guess, a line of sight moving into the future on how that's going to impact our budget, and how the city and the employees are going to be faced potentially with the same contribution levels or increasing contribution levels? Do we have any line of sight into that at this point?
So thanks for that question, Councillor Chahal. I'll probably turn it over to Ms. Mail to maybe answer that a little bit further. But contribution rates of every pension plan at times goes up for the employee, or at times goes up for the employer to cover pending liabilities. I can tell you that about, I believe it's up to 90% of what the pension plans actually pay out each year is covered through investment and interest income, not the contributions on an annual basis. But every plan gets adjusted from time to time. Ms. Mail, did you want to comment a little bit further on that?
Yes, I can, and there's a couple of folks on the line that can assist me with this. I believe that quite recently the local authorities pension plan announced a contribution freeze for next year. And so the rates that we were paying in 2020 would remain the same for 2021. So we are, although it was in the media that they were struggling like many with the markets during the downturn, they have kept their contributions the same. But if Monica or Colleen could help me with that question.
Ms. Mail, it's Colleen here. That is true. LAPP does an actual evaluation every year and forecasting, and they have announced a freeze for 2021, and they will look at it again every year as they usually do.
Can I just ask a follow-up to you, Colleen? Thank you for providing that. Does that mean there's no impact to employees if there are any changes? And does that mean there's no impact to the City of Calgary as well, or is it just the employees that will have no impact?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. And through the chair, neither the employee nor the employer contribution rates are changing in the next year.
Okay. And do you know when we will get an update on from our pension governance committee, or when we'll know what the impacts were from this past year?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. And through the chair, the Pension Governance Committee will present its annual report to Council in July of 2021.
Okay, so this 2020's information will be provided to the public next year in July.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, that is true.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chahal. If there are no other